Okay, I've posted the third production exercise, which is combination kind of exercise. There's a homework part to it, and then there's also a production exercise part to it. So I just wanted to give you a little demo about how to do the homework part of it. You can follow along on the handout, which you can find online. But basically, the first part of this is that I want you to record yourself saying all the various English vowels in this H vowel D context, like he'd, had, hod, hood, hid, haid, head, hood, hode, hud, straight ahead. Okay, so I'm just going to point out that there's one kind of special one here, which is straight ahead, which is not the vowel in the H vowel D context, but the vowel right before it, which is supposed to be a schwa, just to see what that looks like. So the reason I put it in the phrase straight ahead is because before I used to just have ahead by itself, and people would kind of pronounce it like that, like ahead. And that kind of, if you like focus on that first syllable and stress it more than it needs to be stressed, then that vowel kind of shifts away from being a schwa and becomes more like the vowel you get in hud, like a wedge. So try to say the phrase straight ahead just like that, just like you normally would. Don't say straight ahead, something like that. Just try to run through it naturally. And if you do, that will become a schwa, and you'll get sort of meaningful format readings out of it. Straight ahead. So I'm going to do that in prod. We'll see what we get. Straight ahead. Didn't even palatalize the initial S. How about that? Oops, my spectrogram settings are still messed up from the last lecture. And this is not a great recording. Straight ahead. Because we have a lot of noise in the background here. You can see this presence noise here. Whatever, it's close enough. Straight ahead. We're living through the corona apocalypse, so we can't be too picky about things, but straight ahead. There's my schwa, so-called, right there in the middle. So I've got a little guide here to try to help you find it. This is the straight part. Straight. This is actually this T at the end of straight. It becomes a little bit of a flap. I think you can hear that. Straight ahead. And then this is the ahead part. Ahead. So the first part of this, we can see the vowel. Then there's a voiced glottal fricative. Like that. In between two vowels, H often becomes voiced and sounds like that. Maybe I can make this a little bit louder. And then this is the last vowel. Head. What I care about is this guy right here. So it sounds straight ahead. It sounds a little bit epsilon-y. It's moved in that direction. There's a bit of like anticipation of the ed that comes after it. Whatever. All I need you to do for this exercise is to measure the formants in the first three formants. So so basically what I will recommend that you do is eyeball it. That's kind of the easiest way to do it. And here it's not too hard. So my first formant, basically try to find the midpoint of this vowel. It's going to be pretty short. Most of the others will be long like this. So find the time midpoint. And then also just try to click on sort of the frequency midpoint of the vowel. So halfway in between the top and the bottom of this dark bar, halfway between the left and the right side of this dark bar, that will give you the measure you're looking for. So it's 518 hertz. Write that down. And you can write it down with the number after the decimal point. That's fine. Either way. And then this one is 1736. Believe it or not, I'm going to go through all your recordings and double check your measurements. So try to be accurate, relatively speaking, when you do this. Otherwise, I'll take off a few points here and there. And the third one is 2438. We can kind of compare that to this vowel, 655 hertz. So F1 is going to be a little bit higher because this is a little bit of a lower vowel. F2 is about the same, 1701, and F3 is about the same, 2456. But that's how you make those measures. So you're looking over here for these frequency measures. Don't be confused by the pitch tracker. Like if you have the pitch tracker on in blue, it'll give you these measures in blue over here. That's the F0, not the formant frequency. So you click on one spot, it tells you what it thinks the F0 is there, and it tells you what it thinks the formant frequency, or just where you are on the frequency scale in general. So turn the pitch tracker off. If you have like a really bad recording, or if you can't see your formants, which often happens, so sometimes this will happen like with ooh, is not a very intense vowel. I guess I can make an example of that. Hood, hood. Um, if you have semi-decent recording conditions, you should be able to see this. Hood. Yeah, I tried to make a nice back ooh there, but you can see maybe that these upper formants are not as intense as the lower ones. Hood. And sometimes they can get obscured for whatever reason. If you can't find your formants, then and only then I would say turn on this formant tracker. But if you're just trying to get a handle on how to do this, you can also use the formant tracker, because Prod's going to make a guess here about where it thinks the center of the formants are. And it's not usually, well, it's close, but not great usually. So I wouldn't recommend just getting all your formant readings out of this. I'd say use this to try to help you get started to find formants if you can't find them. And if you want, like, you can just click on where these red dots are, and 25, 24. These are going to be pretty close to what I measured. 1770, and what do we got here? Like 518, about the same. If you want, you can actually get a formant listing. Go back up to format and say formant listing, and it tells you what it thinks the formats are. So like 499, 1754, 2497. It's okay to write those down. Like I said, I'm going to double check you by hand. So just make sure you're kind of in the neighborhood of where you ought to be, and that should be all right. And if it doesn't make sense to you, let me know. I can try to walk you through it perhaps in our office hours. Anyways, write down your format measurements for all the different vowels in a table like this. It doesn't necessarily have to be in this order, but just get all of them in there. And then once you've written down your format measurements, send them to me. I've got them, hand them in on a piece of paper. That's not going to work for this semester, but just get them to me somehow. I've set up a Dropbox for this. I want you to not only give me your format measurements, but I also want you to give me your recordings of your vowels so I can double check on what you did. And then lastly, I want you to plot your vowel space. So take the measurements of your first two format values for each of your vowels and then plot them in the chart below. And this might take some creative thinking, technology-wise, for you to figure out how to get your plots here. But maybe the easiest thing to do is either get it, if you can print this out, you can just write them out there using a pen. You can take a scan or a picture of your plot. That's fine. Or you can put them on here digitally somehow. I don't really care. If you need help, you can ask for it. But just get that to me somehow. And that is also kind of going to serve as a double check on your format measurements, because they should look something like the vowel spaces we've been talking about in class, or at least on the video lectures online. Remember, so this last video I posted talked to you a little bit about the Canadian vowel shift, and a lot of you are going to have shifted vowels, which are not exactly where the textbook says they should be. So try not to freak out if they wind up in a different spot than you're anticipating. If you're really concerned about what your vowels look like, and some people are every single semester, you can ask me, and I can kind of confirm that you're on the right track. Sometimes people will not measure formants correctly and they'll get really off. So that does happen. As always, just ask questions. I got nothing else to do for the next 3 weeks, but sit here and think about phonetics and how we're going to get all through all this stuff. So I'm happy to answer questions. All right. So lastly, there's a more regular part of the production exercise, which is I gave you samples of vowels from 3 different languages: Dutch, Vietnamese, and French. And I want you to produce them. So there are tokens of these vowels online. You can listen to them and try to imitate them as best you can. Send them to me and I will get you feedback on how you did. I still need to work on getting you feedback on your second production exercise. I've got the rest of the weekend set aside for that. So you can look forward to receiving that sometime soon. And again, just let me know if any of this doesn't make sense.